Today I'm going to show you how to set up your Clio account to connect it with Documate so that you can pull data from Clio inside of your workflows. The first thing I'm going to do is go to
Integrations
and connect my Clio account to Documate. It's going to ask me to allow access, so I'll say that I'll allow access from Clio, and now my account is linked, as you can see. So now let's go back over to our workflows, and we're going to go into this sample workflow over here. As you can see, I've already set up two questions for my workflow. One is asking for the client's name, and the second is asking about the client's marital status. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to add a page where I'll ask about the opposing party information. The first question I want to ask on the opposing party information is which of the contacts inside of Clio is the spouse's name. So what I'll be able to do is instead of having to retype out the spouse's name, I'll be able to actually select from the contacts that already exist inside of Clio. So what I'll do is I'll click Clio contact. I'll use a very simple question like what is the spouse's name? And then I will use the variable name Clio contact. And I may actually want to say spouse so that when I'm inside of my documents and connecting my documents to these variables, I know that this was the spouse variable name. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to set up my documents to connect to these variables. So those will be setting up inside of output documents. But before we do that, we're actually going to go inside of the Word add-in so that we can connect these variables directly inside of our Microsoft Word document. Then we'll come back here and load them to output documents. So let's go over to Word. So now we're inside of Microsoft Word and we have the Word add-in open. As you can see, this is a super simple document, but it's going to give you an idea of exactly how you set everything up. So let's start with our simple variables. And I want to enter the client's name here. So client name is not a Clio variable, it's a regular variable. And I'll just go ahead and click insert variable. And I'll add a comma after that so that when I enter my client's name, that'll be populated here, a little bit like mail merge. Now, the next thing I want to do is add the spouse's name. So the spouse's name is going to be pulled from Clio, depending on which one I choose. So it says, thanks for engaging us in this matter and your divorce against. So the next thing I want to do is actually enter the client's spouse's name, which is a variable we picked from all the options of the contacts inside of Clio. So what I'll do is I'll use this drop down. And as you can see, we have simple variables, but we also have any variable that starts with Clio contact spouse, which is the document identifier for the Clio variable, is a Clio contact. And inside of these brackets are the Clio field names that are contained inside of the Clio contact. So for example, I might want to say, thanks for engaging us in this matter and your divorce against Clio contact spouse name. So I'll insert that. And what that's going to do is that's actually the variable that I'm going to be selecting from inside of my workflow. Now, the next thing I may want to do is add other variables that are associated with that contact without having to actually select them in the workflow. So for example, let's say I also want to include inside of this document the client's spouse's primary email address, which I didn't ask in the workflow, but because we've already chosen the spouse's name, we're going to be able to pick the associated email address. So we might want to say whose email address is, and then we'll insert this primary email address field that will be pulled from Clio. And as you can see, there are a bunch of different options that you can choose. You can also use these variables inside of logic. So as you can see, they appear here as well. So the next thing I want to do is go back to my Documate interface and upload this document. So I'll go back to Documate, go to the Output Documents tab, which is what the documents that are generated are. And I'll just load that basic demo document that we were just working with. I can load as many documents here as I want, but again, this is a very simple use case that we're showing here. Now we're all set. So all I need to do is go ahead and save and run my workflow. And I'll start entering the information. So I'll say my client's name is Jane Doe. She's married. Her spouse's name is Jason, and that will start picking from the different contacts that exist in Clio. And now you can see the documents have been generated. There's a Word document version for editing, and there's also this PDF version of the document that I can open up either of. And again, very simple document, but here we have the information. Dear Jane Doe, thanks for engaging us in this matter against Jason Conan, whose email address is jason@documate.org. Now, if we had other fields associated with the spouse's name, those would also be included here.